Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi, welcome to Life Recovery Today. We're going to be talking about recovery is for everybody. But first, I want to talk to you about something that's really tough to deal with when you're in a no-win situation, but there actually is a win. You know, when Paul wrote the 3rd chapter of Colossians, he didn't know it was the 3rd chapter, we turned it into that. But when he wrote that chapter, he wrote to some people that were in a no-win situation. They were slaves. And he said, slaves, obey your master, show them respect, work for them like you're working for God. Man, if I was a slave and I saw that, I'd be asking, hey, why don't you abolish slavery? Well, you know, Paul couldn't change society or the cultural institutions, but he was trying to change one person at a time, and eventually, of course, it would change. But in addition to telling slaves to obey, he said, masters, treat your slaves fairly and good, because you have a master in heaven. Then he says, children, you better obey those parents of yours. Well, you know, a lot of kids have some pretty abusive parents, and it's kind of a no-win situation. But we need to do what we can in tough situations, and once we get out of that, we can heal from that. He also tells those parents, hey, dads, don't provoke your kids. Don't aggravate them. And then he says to women, submit to your husband. Boy, that's tough for a lot of people to hear. Doesn't sound like anybody wins there. But then he says to the husband, don't you ever be harsh with her or treat her unkindly. We have a God of love, not a God of dictatorships and doormats, not a God of hopelessness and no win. In fact, if you were a slave in those days, the win comes by loving God, showing respect in this institution that was horrific, but then realizing that there was a heaven waiting for you, a heaven full of peace and joy and love, and that this moment of eternity where you were a slave is an opportunity to show God that no matter how bad it gets, your faith, it never goes away. Now, when you live like that, that is the life of recovery and restoration. And that's for everyone. When we come back, that's what we're going to talk about today on Life Recovery Today.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for coming back after that break. Well, I am joined by one of my very favorite people in the entire world, Becky Brown. Becky, how long have we worked together?
Forever. But who's counting? No.
Yeah, it's probably felt that way
no, not
to
really.
you.
Yeah.
But we have been through quite a bit together. It's certainly over 10 years.
It's about 20 years,
Yeah.
actually. The first workship I ever did was in 2002.
And you were a counselor.
Yes, as a counselor, we did Lose It for Life in Cape May.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Well, Cape May holds a very special place to us because we had a lot of great experiences there. But we had a lot of people begin a journey, a recovery journey of getting the weight off and keeping it off. And, you know, Becky is she's a licensed clinical therapist. She's really been great in New Life doing so many different things. She was over our entire counselor network. She's doing development now and connecting with folks. And so and also I want to mention this. You're involved with recovery at your church. Talk about that a little bit.
So it's interesting to see recovery move into the church because so many times people think that recovery is for those people who either don't go to church or are so far into their addiction that church isn't even part of their process. But what we know for sure is that there are a lot of folks that are in the church who are struggling with something. And so when we made the decision to bring in recovery to our church, it just changed the environment for the better. Everybody started to realize that we all struggle with something and that we need a path and a process to go to healing and to find sobriety.
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of times when a church does get into recovery, people start thinking it's for those people. And we're going to talk about that because those people are us people. But I want to mention something up the other day. A woman sent us an email about going to Al-Anon. And she had been to our Life Recovery Conference. We've got one of those coming up. You can join us. But she said she heard Misty talk about the need to stay in your secular recovery group even though you go to a church recovery group. And the reason was that if everybody leaves those groups, then who is there to talk to them in the parking lot about whatever they want to talk about? And so this woman said she was about to leave Al-Anon because of what Misty said. She stayed in. And she said, over the years, because how many years ago was that Misty spoke? Probably 6 or 5 or something.
Well, no, she spoke at a recovery conference, a couple years ago, and we still have that on, available.
Well, the lady says, I have watched these Al-Anon women come to Christ. Isn't that great? That's what it's all about. But Becky, let's talk about this thing, which my good buddy Dave, who's gone to be with the Lord, literally, we knew this and we believed this, that recovery was for everyone.
Right.
Now, why is that? Well, everybody really does need to surrender to God. There's no exception.
Right.
That is what God's calling us to do.
Right. And I think that's the highlight, is that so many times people hear the word recovery and they think that they're the exception.
Yeah.
And I talked about this. You said this yesterday. Failure is part of the plan.
Yeah.
It happens to all of us. So what are we going to do with that? For me, in my journey, I didn't have a drinking problem. That wasn't it. But I had a thinking problem. And I had to work on my thinking, still have to work on my thinking. And the 12 steps and the recovery process has been so helpful. For example, this past year during the pandemic and all the shutdown, if you didn't think that you needed to pray the Serenity Prayer a couple times a day, I mean, really to get through all of it. But so many people think that recovery is just for people who are struggling in addiction. And we've talked about codependency on this program because that is also a part of seeking recovery. But I want the viewer to really just kind of think about what are the things that you're stuck in, that you're struggling with, that you can't figure out how to move forward. And you also mentioned this yesterday, that you were talking about how, are you just going to go to meetings and never do anything more with your life? Right. God's got a plan for your life. And if you're stuck in, whatever the struggle is, it could be anger, it could be eating, issues. It could be that. It could be that you just can't seem to connect with anybody. Yeah. And we had a caller just today that said, I just do not know how to connect with my family. All of those things can be addressed through recovery processes. And we've seen people have a whole new life because of the willingness to say, okay, I got to deal with this.
Yeah.
What's the process?
So I suspect that maybe you're watching this and you have something in common with me. That at certain times in my life, I have known I needed to stop something. Or I've known I needed to start something. I've known I've needed to go to a meeting or a group. And I felt really bad about needing this. Well, what does that do? If you're aware and you're wanting to change and you're just continuing to repeat over and over again and fail, maybe it's time to consider something different. Okay, so what is that difference? Well, one, you say, okay, me wanting this to change hasn't changed anything. Secondly, doesn't look like I have the ability to change it myself, so I'm going to need God to help me here. Now, how is God going to help you? Strike you with lightning? No. Group of people. Safe, supportive people, and that's what your recovery group at your church does. So recovery involves other people. And you can take that in many different forms, but look, finding a 12-step group that's supportive of those 12 steps could be the key to going from, oh, I know I need to change this, to actually doing something about it. Because if you don't ever do anything about it, you're just living in regret. Now let's just talk about somebody that's struggling with anxiety. Okay, you're not an addict. You're not taking Xanax or Valium or anything like that. But recovery is for that person.
It's a perfect example because I think about the people who, if anxiety is the issue, you literally are locked inside of yourself. You're feeling all of these things, but you have no process to express them or to get rid of them or to move past them. And we want to be fully feeling people, to have a full range of emotions. And a lot of times what happens in those kind of struggles, we get shut down. And anxiety definitely shuts somebody down to the point where, it can limit your life, that well, I can't go there because that makes me too anxious. All right. And especially in this day and age when we're, trying to take extra measures to be safe, it's triggering some folks that really have an anxiety issue. In the 12 steps, if we talk about this in a group setting, somebody says, okay, today I'm feeling anxious and this is what was coming up for me. I had to go to a visit of a doctor or something and it just made me feel nervous. Now it doesn't seem like that would be helpful. It's amazing what that will do to be able to be heard and to be supported. Nobody's going to fix you. That's not what the goal is in recovery. It's literally just to be seen and heard and to be supported. Community is the way to go with that as well.
Someone might say they were anxious about going to see the doctor. In that same group, someone might share, I really related to what Bob said, and I remember when I couldn't go to the doctor, I was so anxious I couldn't get out of the house. And then I finally invited Fred to come over and help me, and I'm so glad I did. Now that's not fixing the other person, but it's just telling your story. And then now neither people feel alone in that way. But look, if you're anxious, it could be because you have a wiring problem. In this organ up here, this brain, chemistry might not be right, or as we say, it's a wiring problem. And so that's not going to go away. Or you could have been in some kind of traumatic relationship early on that just makes you anxious around everybody. That's not going to go away. When we can come together with safe people and we can experience safety and share and be open and no bad things happen, that's a big part of healing anxiety.
It is the power of Me Too.
Yeah.
To know that you are not alone. And we hear that over and over again is, when somebody who has not begun the recovery journey, they feel trapped. They feel like, I can't tell anybody, no one else has this issue. I'm going to be ostracized if I share or if anybody finds out. And what we see over and over again is the complete opposite. And it's in that sharing that we get strength to do that next day and the next day after that, and to begin that process so that then you get to a place where you're like, yeah, I have anxiety, or it deals, I have to deal with it from time to time, but it's not governing my life.
Yeah. Well, that's what we want, is for somebody to go through life, and responding to God is what really is governing your life. How do I respond to God? What does God want me to do? What's my calling? But I have to tell you this, if you are anxious, a lot of times it's because you've got all of the future days lined up, and you're taking on all of the worry and all of the downside of those days ahead of you. Well, recovery, if it's not anything else, it's taking your life one day at a time. And sometimes it comes down to an hour at a time. And you're living in the present, and you can connect with people, not projecting what might happen out in the future that could cause you to be anxious. We know that there is serenity as a result of working those steps. We'll talk more about that right after this break.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis, someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Steve Arterburn here. Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. I want to remind you that if you don't have a Life Recovery Bible, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We'll get one to you there. I just got the press release from Prison Fellowship that in a 9-month period, they gave away 100,000 Life Recovery Bibles to prisoners. And that is a result of them doing a survey of chaplains, asking them what Bible, what translation, what should we be giving away to prisoners? And it came back, Life Recovery Bible. And you could benefit from that same study Bible, devotional Bible. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. So we do believe that recovery is for everybody. The 12 steps really are character building program. You could say it's a discipleship program. Mm-hmm. The end result, the 12th step, is what, Becky?
Well, the 12th step is to carry this message on.
Yeah.
So many times what we tend to do with our lives is we feel like we got to get it all right, and then we're just going to hold still until we see Jesus. I mean, it's just like, but that's not what we're here for. We have a calling on our life to help others. And there is such a reminder in the 12th step to keep carrying the message on. When you connect with other people, especially after you've worked recovery, you recognize how you can help somebody else. It could be something as simple as, I hear you. I'm hearing what you're having to say, and it sounds really tough. You learn that in recovery because you're not trying to fix anybody. But I also think the hard part is that when you're not working recovery, you can get very self-focused, thinking that this is just about me. I just got to do what works for me, and I just gonna, let everybody else figure it out on their own. It's not very helpful, and it's not life-giving. As you share the message of hope and a promise for other people, it gives you life. It gives you purpose, and it also it's just exciting to see how it can work in the lives of so many people.
Well, I think a lot of folks believe that God has a plan for every person but me. And you start thinking, look at all these people out there and look at what they're doing, and they're making a difference. But I got to tell you, I believe every person is called. Every person has a purpose in life. And really what recovery is about is kind of a repurposing of your life. Because, we have a person who supports us, and he owns a huge company. And I think he thought that it was his purpose in life to employ people, provide them with good wages, be fair, all those kinds of things. Then he gets into recovery. And he got in trouble, turned things around, and I think he would say his bigger purpose today is now getting other people to get help rather than struggle alone. Now, not everybody just decides to go get everybody else in recovery. But to me, when you are recovered, you do start to look outside yourself, and you want to make a difference. You want other people to have what you have.
Right. And I think the clarity that comes is life-changing. So there was a person that went to my recovery group, and they relapsed. And I mean, it was terrible. And it was challenging for all of us to watch this person who had done so well for so long have this complete, like it was like he'd never even walked in recovery. But the most encouraging thing was when he showed back up, he was just met with grace. And we're glad you're here. Because in recovery, we know we all have the potential to have that failure. So we're going to give grace, and we're going to help somebody else so that they know they can go back and start all over again. That may seem defeating to some people, because what they think all I need to do is get this taken care of and never have to think about it again. Well, who wants to be stuck in their thinking that way? There is so much to learn and to give. And I love the person that you're talking about, because their motivation now is love and a future for people who he interacts with. And it's more than just what's here and now. It's multiplication on such a great level. And the lives that are changing because of his testimony. It's amazing. It really is.
It is amazing. And you know, one of the great things that we've seen people literally have miracles occur. The relationship, the marriage, dead, over, and then there's restoration, and then they experience an intimacy, and they say, you know, I don't think we would have ever gotten this deep or this rich together if there hadn't been this horrible thing and recovery from it.
And they end up having a relationship that any of us would want from the beginning if we knew that it was possible after they do the work.
That's right. So we've been making the case, or trying to, that recovery is for everyone. And I want to talk about this place that you can get where there's no alternative but up. And that's when you get so depressed that you're suicidal. I want to say a couple of things. One, the statistic of people that try to commit suicide and fail, only 10% of them will actually kill themselves, because you're in pain, you want the pain to stop, and you hear these stories of people, like this one lady shot herself in the head to kill herself, and the second the trigger goes off, she's screaming, somebody help me, somebody help me. Because you don't really want to die, you just want the pain to stop. So if you reach that point and you survive, you might decide, okay, I'm not going to kill myself. But what are you going to do? Well, hopefully you'll get some help. But I'm going to tell you, you could be in a place where there's no help. And a 12-step meeting online or by phone, you would be shocked at how much hope and healing you could experience after a suicide attempt or sinking down deep in depression. And you don't have to attempt suicide. You could get involved in recovery just because you're deeply depressed.
I think so many times people don't understand that recovery, because it's for everyone, you're not the exception. And the process, many times people say, well, I went to a meeting and I didn't really like it. Well, it's going to take more than just one and done. It's a process. And here's your option. So you don't go and you stay miserable and maybe even get worse. But what would it hurt to take that next step, whatever that next step is? And it could be that you get a Life Recovery Bible. I know so many people have started their journey by that Bible. They just do the devotional, and then all of a sudden they realize, oh, I need other people. I need help. and their life is reborn. It's a really great thing. I think if you have the mindset that recovery is just for someone who is in addiction, you're missing out on the opportunity to have a full and free life, and a life that gives to others and gives life to others.
Yeah. And a lot of times we want the Bible to speak to us. It needs a little bit of help, some commentary, and like the Life Recovery Bible, all of that commentary written by Bible scholars out of Christian universities and seminaries, and all of them had been in recovery. So that's why it rings so true with so many people. But I have to tell you, the Bible has some parts that are difficult to understand, but much more that's really easy to understand. And some people, they don't look at the Bible because they go, oh, it's so difficult to understand. Very little. So you get a Life Recovery Bible. You also can get that Life Recovery Journey, which has 4 Bible studies for every step, and then you really come to see the value of recovery no matter what. Becky, thanks for being here. I'll be back for a final word right after this.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. My thanks to Becky Brown, who has helped us explore the fact that recovery really is for everyone. We all want to be happy. I think that's just a given. Don't you want to be happy? And the Bible tells us, the psalmist makes it really clear, that it's in following God's commands, not resisting or minimizing. It's following those commands where happiness is truly found. That's the statement of a psalmist who went absolutely the other way against those commands and saw the devastation and the misery. Maybe you've been trying to minimize or totally do without living according to God's plan. There's some happiness that's waiting for you if you'll decide, I'm going to surrender to this rather than run from it. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time on Life Recovery Today.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.